Okay, hi everyone. Sorry for the IT issues today, but thank you all for being here. We very much appreciate you tuning in to this very important topic. My name is Diane Bowen Coleman, and I'm the State Human Trafficking Abatement Coordinator with the Special Investigation and Prosecution Division of the Department of the Attorney General. I will be introducing our two speakers. We have Dr. Dana Schultz. Dr. Dana Schultz has over 2 decades of service. She's walked along survivors of trauma, gender-based violence, substance use, and mental health struggles, bleeding together clinical care, cultural wisdom, and the unyielding pursuit of justice. She has a doctorate in clinical psychology and a license in social work and substance abuse counseling. And they are tools that she wields with compassion, shaping pathways where healing and dignity can take root. Beyond the titles, Dr. Schultz was a voice that is born of lived truth. As a survivor of domestic violence and sexual assault, she knows the weight of silence and the power of being heard. Her own journey fuels the mission to transform pain into purpose and to guide others toward resilience, forgiveness, and reclamation of their narratives. Today, she serves as clinical supervisor for the Work Life Hawaii program at Child and Family Services, overseeing statewide counseling services for more than 100 organizations. She ensures that care is not only clinically sound, but trauma-informed, culturally grounded, and deeply human. She is also the founder of I Am Healing, Enlightened, Empowered, and Resilient, a nonprofit born of vision and heart. And through this work, she offers survivors holistic healing frameworks that center identity, acknowledgement, and transformation, blending evidence-based practice with Native Hawaiian values to create culturally rooted pathways of renewal. Her career has spanned crisis intervention, disaster response, LGBTQ plus mental health, and program development. She has led as executive director of the first federally funded Native Hawaiian Resource Center on domestic violence, advised state-level initiatives, and trained countless professionals across the islands. Dr. Schultz is recognized not only for her expertise, but for her presence, a trusted voice, a compassionate leader, a cultural healer. Whether she is training providers, supervising clinicians, or walking beside survivors, her work embodies resilience, hope, and justice. She is a reminder that healing is possible, that from lived pain can rise lived wisdom, and from lived wisdom can rise collective transformation. Thank you, Dana, for being here. We also have Renee Rivera, an MSW, who was born and raised on the island of Hawaii. Okay, thank you. She is a Kanazamali Yerman shaped by the winds and waters of her homeland.
And I think dear yeah, I think something.
Everybody mute, please. Thank you. Okay. She is a survivor of homelessness, sexual assault, domestic violence, addiction, and human trafficking. A journey marked by darkness and displacement, but also by the unbreakable force of aloha that has always lived within her. Renee carries the memories and emotions of survival like stones made smooth by the ocean, the heaviness of fear, the sting of betrayal, the loneliness of being unseen, and the quiet hope that one day she would return to herself. Through exploitation and trauma, she learned to listen for the voices of her kupuna calling her back, steadying in her spirit, reminding her that she was never meant to remain in the shadows. From these depths she rose. Every step forward became an act of reclamation of identity, of dignity, of her story. And in rising, she discovered that her own healing could become a guiding light for others walking their own different paths. Today, Renee serves as a human services faculty instructor at Hawaii Community College, where her classrooms are places of pilina, humility, and deep cultural care. Students describe her teaching as healing spaces where lived experience is honored, knowledge flows like Vi, and anchored in her Native Hawaiian identity, Renee moves with the guidance of her kupuna and the values passed down through generations. Her greatest ike comes from her family, her piko, her grounding, who remind her daily of the power of resilience, compassion, and aloha. Renee is a testament to the truth that even in the harshest storms, a Kanaka spirit can rise, heal, and transform. Her life is a chant of survival, a story of returning home to her own mana. Thank you, Renee. And this is being recorded. If you're signed up for other sessions, not all sessions will be recorded, but we did want to let you know that this session is being recorded. And trigger warnings, just always be sure to please take care of yourself first and foremost. Thank you.
Mahalo, Diane, for the introduction, and mahalo, everyone, for your patience. We weren't aware that the attendees were not let in the room, so we're going to do our best to deliver this presentation in the authenticity and with as much genuine truth as we can in the time that we have. But we thank you all for being patient. Before we get started, wanted to just take a minute to connect with ourselves and be able to acknowledge survivors, their families, and those that we have there are no longer with us. This is a really hard and raw topic for us to talk on, and I wanted to let you all know that today is really historical in Renee's healing journey because she's going to be sharing a part of her that she's not shared with others ever. So I just ask you to be respectful and mindful of that as she goes through this talk with us today. We're going to ask if you can hold your questions till the end. So before we get started, go ahead and just take a minute for us to connect and be grateful before we get going. We thank our Kupun and Amaku as well for guiding us and all our sources that have got us to this point in our life. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing screen. So this is our presentation today, Validating Survivor Voices. I'm going to let Renee, do you have anything to say before we start?
I just want to thank everybody for coming, and also giving us the patience and time to be the first one on this series, and also making sure that we're honoring each other and honoring the community of survivors.
Thank you. Okay. So this title slide really holds a lot of meaning to me as a survivor. Renee created this image. So the images that you do see, she created, and I wanted to share it with you because I really feel like this speaks to many of us. So standing in our power, despite our struggles, despite adversities, we continue to look forward. And we see the Eva bird there as well. And it's also another cultural significance to us, as the Eva bird guides us back home to safety. So, in the Native Hawaiian culture, we really believe the importance of voice, and individuals that have succumbed to human trafficking have been caught in it, trapped in it, survivors of people that have been able to pull themselves out. Voice is something that is huge. As I have here, voice is more than the physical act of speaking, as it carries spiritual meanings, memories, and is tied to experiences in our lives. So if you do work in the field of trauma, you understand the importance of being able to have your voice, to be able to reclaim your voice and speak your voice and speak your truth. And this is part of the healing journey that we do our best to support the people that we work with in the field. And as a survivor, I can completely tell you being able to speak my truth confidently is something that I had to work for. It wasn't something that I was able to just say, well, now I'm free, now I'm safe, now I can speak. It was actually something I had to train myself on and to feel comfortable and confident and know that I wasn't going to be judged. So silence is both imposed and protective, As we know, perpetrators use silence as a form of power and control. It's a way to keep us trapped. And survivors may silence themselves as coping. So a way to kind of protect ourselves and survive. We're not going to speak because we know the more we speak, the worse it gets. And we become accustomed to not speaking because that's just a form of survival for us. And that carries out and transfers on to when we're not in this environment anymore because we've learned for so long, speaking just gets us in trouble. And when we do speak, people don't always believe us. So this is why it's important to understand the value of your voice and how precious it is to not silence survivors. I often say this in circles and places I go. The word pu'uhonua is used a lot in the Native Hawaiian culture. It's a place of safety, a place to seek refuge. But you as the provider, you as the friend, you as a sister can be the pu'uhonua for anyone that is seeking help. So validating the voices of survivors is essential for connection and safety, and of course to promote that healing. If you are that safe person, you're going to be able to create an environment where someone can feel it's okay to be vulnerable. Let's let the walls down, even if it's a minute at a time, a day at a time. Something, small steps is better than nothing. Belief is the foundation of safety. Because for many survivors, their truth was denied for so long. Experiences were minimized and the pain was dismissed. There's nothing worse than telling someone that it wasn't that bad, get over it. And that's what many survivors have to deal with on a daily basis. When we believe, we validate voices and we begin to repair what the exploitation tried to erase or what it did take away. So it's always a step-by-step process, right? And it's in the person's time. It's not in our time frame, and we have to respect that of survivors. Here are just some steps I wanted to share with you. And Diane's going to be able to share a handout. Just thinking about what it takes for someone to work with a survivor and what it takes for a survivor to be willing to work with someone. Because we want to shift the mindset from blame to understanding what happened to them. I don't think anyone goes into the situation understanding the depth and the realm that's going to happen to them. So, of course, safety is always paramount, no matter where you are, who you are, where you come from. Trauma-informed care always preaches safety. When you create that common, welcoming environment, you want to build that rapport. You want to be able to ensure confidentiality to the best of your ability, offer choices for the individual. Perhaps an office space is a clinical setting and it brings back too much pain for them, or they don't like to feel trapped. So we have to be able to establish safety. Safety is the foundation of voice. Once someone feels safe, it's easier for them to start opening up and sharing their experiences. That wound will open. We have to be able to take care of that wound as we go through that process. Transparency is huge all the time. I tell people, like, I'm be as transparent as I can because I can't imagine what it was like to be in a situation where everything was a hidden agenda and you didn't know what was going to happen next. You didn't know if you were going to get physically abused, sexually assaulted for saying something and doing something, or being lured into something that just got you into worse harm. So transparency can repair the harm caused by deception and control. Like being transparent so that survivor can see, like, this is what my intention is and this is what I'm doing, also fosters that relationship. We want to offer voice, choice, and control. At the end of the day, the last thing we want to do is control the situation. We want the survivor to be able to have that option and the opportunity to have choices, to be able to voice what they want to or not, provide options. I like to do a lot of art. If you've been to any of my trainings, you know I'm very experiential. I'll open the space up with Play-Doh or markers or something that's going to get your brain going. Well, maybe I can focus on this and then maybe I'll feel a little safer doing that. So a choice restores autonomy, something that survivors didn't have. They didn't have the ability to choose. So now they have choice, which is so key for them. And here's a huge one, listening without judgment. How many times have we come across someone that says, well, no judgment. However, the next thing they say appears like a judgment, right? Or it appears like, well, I don't agree with you and this is why. So the way we want to communicate is we want to be able to listen with aloha, as I like to say, understanding. And even if we don't understand, we don't have to agree, but we're not going to be the ones to negate the survivor. We want to be able to avoid interrupting or redirecting and sitting in silence. Silence can be healing in and of itself. Timing is key. So rushing someone to say something could be more damaging. And we don't want to be the ones to be the fix it, right? At the end of the day, we're there to support through listening, strongest form of validation we can provide. This is also huge. Reflect, affirm, and validate. So we want to find statements that support and validate what this person has gone through. What your experience was real. What they're telling us is their experience. Who are we to say that's not true or that didn't really happen? Minimizing things at this point will do more damage than good. So validation reduces shame and strengthens self-worth. If you can get to this point where someone is starting to feel better about themselves, understanding that they have value, you're making a lot of progress. They're making a lot of progress. Because for them, perhaps they didn't feel like they equated or deserved anything. Cultural is also key. I really like to bring in culture. And for those of you that have gone to my trainings as well, I'll bring in Native Hawaiian values. I'll bring in a story. I'll bring in an oli, something that will tie into the lesson. So if you have someone that is of Native Hawaiian culture, you can always tie in our mo'olelo. So you can bring in someone like a kahu or a kumu to kind of bridge that gap, to share the stories, for them to understand their identity and where they come from. And culture can also be any other culture. If you know of someone that is Japanese, like I am, and I try to learn more about it to connect with Japanese survivors, that's also key. Because understanding the importance of shame, understanding the importance of we're not going to tell people what happened to us. We're just going to continue on despite how hard it is. And we're not going to ask for help. That's all part of understanding how to move forward with somebody and also being able to call on your ancestors for that support and that added strength. So culture can be seen as a form of medicine, and a voice is part of cultural recognition. So we want to be able to restore that individual through all the tools that we have. Pathologizing language, using clinical terms. That makes someone feel like they're even worse off than they are. I'm going to have this diagnosis, this label tied to me because of something that happened to me. That's not something we want to do. We want to have supportive language. Your reaction makes sense given what you've lived through. What happened to you versus your choice? Why did you do that? Why did you go there? You want to avoid those kinds of statements. You did what you needed to survive. That's being able to understand. You did not necessarily want to be there. You didn't want to do it, but I understand to survive. These are things you had to do. And you want to invite collaboration and not extraction. This is where the kako thing, we all together. This is important. We want to know how survivors want to shape their space, like what their story looks like. Avoid tokenizing or using stories for impact. So don't take their show on the road because it makes you look good, right? Survivor stories are priceless. It's part of their life, and we want to be able to honor them. There are partners, not our subjects. So we can learn together, grow together, live in the space, and be able to help each other overcome things. What you have to offer can always compliment, but I always look at clients or survivors and people, and I'm like, your story also helps me. Because there's days when I think of people I worked with that they pulled themselves out of some really ugly, dark places. And I might be feeling low and having myself a little moment, but I can reflect on the work, reflect on the individual as a person, as a human. And that to me is worth more than any dollar amount in the world. And the last two points I want to share is support free flowing expression. So storytelling is not straight, right? It's not an A to Z process. You're going to oftentimes go backwards. You're going to be stuck for a little while. You may have to rewrite something because a memory came, and that's okay. It's all part of the process. You allow that to happen. You want to allow for different forms of healing, art, movement. Metaphors are huge in the Native Hawaiian culture. Storytelling, poetry. Let survivors set the rhythm because they're going to be able to heal in their time. And if you're on a timeline, which I tell people I'm not a workbook kind of person, I'm not a CBT 12-week workbook person, then this is really not going to work for you because you're still in that space of I have to get it done in my timeline. Being survivor centered, you're allowing them to heal in their time. And of course, always closing with care. So you want to wrap it up with aloha. You always want to have something to give the survivor back that they can take with them, and vice versa. Breath work is huge. The hanu and ha, I like to use that to clear spaces and open spaces. You want to be able to do check-ins and gently sharing. How much are you? Inquiring what's going on. We want to reinforce what you shared today was the right amount. It was helpful. There's no judgment also when you're closing. You also want to offer resources. So if you know other resources that could help this individual, offer it. Offer it, give it to the individual and let them decide. Don't mandate them to do it because they've already done enough mandating. They've already been forced to do a lot. So a safe ending is as important as a safe beginning. So remember, you want to be able to close up these conversations, allowing the survivor to say, you know what, this was worthwhile. I trust you. I want to continue on. Versus, okay, I did this. I'm done. I don't think I ever want to do this again because talking to you was more harmful. I felt judged. I didn't feel like you helped me. And that will most likely backfire. The survivor will just withdraw once again or engage in self-harming behaviors. Before we move into Renee, I wanted to share some quotes that I found. And this middle one, well, they all really spoke to me, but this middle one really spoke to me. Being believed was the first step in my healing. For so long, people doubted me. When someone finally said, I hear you, I felt hope for the first time. Being able to be heard and not doubted, that was my story. So this is why this impacts me so much more. Because people didn't believe for a long time what I went through, or I minimized it. So I actually felt hope. So I understand when someone says that, I can imagine how impactful that is for other survivors. When someone finally listened to me and believed me, it changed everything. I wasn't just a victim. And that's huge, just a victim. I was a person again. Like I felt human again. I can imagine what that's like. Because not being considered a victim, that title, that label is just so ostracizing. It's demeaning and it's defeating. So I was a person again. And sharing my story without judgment helped me take my power back. I realized my voice mattered. This is why we want to be able to validate the voices of survivors all the time. Remember this, remember these steps when you're working with people. This is very important for us to be that aloha and share that aloha and let it transcend through the healing. Thank you all. So now I'm going to have Renee share her story.
Thank you, Dana. So this first slide I wanted to share is a digital image here in the middle that represents me and my 18-year-old son. I feel like at that point in time in my life, 18 years ago, is when the journey of healing chose me. I felt like so validated survivor voices to me means believing without conditions, listening without judgment, and responding with aloha. When we do this, we do not just help survivors heal, we heal our community. And I also wanted to highlight John and Jessica Cockrell because they heard my voice. They believed in my survivor story and they allowed me to start a nonprofit agency so we could start validating survivor voices and not only mine. Dana, can you move the square down where it's blocking? Okay. Um, so aloha kako, everyone. I want to acknowledge this aina for people who are not from Hawaii or not Hawaiian or no Hawaiian terminology is the land. Um, and also honor my ancestors, our ancestors who have held truth long before we had the language for trauma. A lot of people that I've talked to, and I always grew up and I never heard the word trauma. Um, of the times that I ever have tried to seek intervention, I never knew what the word trauma was. So I want to speak today as a survivor, not only to be defined of what happened to me, but to validate the voices for those who are still finding their way back to themselves, who are still unheard, disbelieved, or blamed. So I want to start off with this quote that came to my mind when I said yes to do this webinar, because I think that for me, my addiction did not cause my trafficking. I feel like my trafficking has caused my addiction. I wanted to also give a few highlights before my story because I feel like it's important for me to validate my own voice today. Um, so what hurts more than what happened to me was being told that it wasn't real, it wasn't that bad, or somehow it was my fault. And I feel through the different stories and the different traumas what I went to, and still till today, many years later, I feel like somehow it's still my fault. I've been through a lot of different therapies. I've been through cultural grounding. I've been through a lot of different things, and there's still this little itch in within myself that feels like somehow it's still my fault. So as I talk about my story, a lot of times it brings up the psychological, emotional control that I was under for many years and maybe still am. So, psychologically, making survival dependent on obedience. So, a lot of times with trafficking and with a lot of things with being survivor, we're under this obedience. And I felt like even if I'm not trafficked or even if I'm out of that realm or that system, still feel like I am obedient to people. Um, and that in this trafficking, addiction, and trauma, really, obedience speaks a lot into me, and I'm trying to work on that. Also the emotional manipulation, how it masks, that masks as love, help, or protection, right? I'm here to love you, I'm here to help you, and I'm here to protect you until it flips um and when we look at drug dependency, so substances were introduced, of course, it also was withheld, and it also was weaponized against me, so often creating fear of withdrawal to maintain control. Using became a way of survival to cope with the rape, the abuse, and of being controlled by others. Today, as I share my story of what was fun that turned into fear. But as I look at this image and you all get to see the image of me as a child, I want to honor her that lives inside of me, that I did not pay attention to throughout my life. And she screamed help for many years. And I felt like substance use, and I felt like being self-medicated and obedient and everything that comes with my story. I didn't validate her. It took me many years of EMDR and many different modalities of therapy for me to start looking at her and say, I validate you every single day. As I look at myself in the mirror, I look at her. And for some people who know me, who was on this con, knows me as this little girl. And this is what my traffickers love. They love this little girl. She has dimples. She's beautiful, right? She's very raw. And I felt like this was a time in my life that I was starting to be obedient to people around me. So I want to kind of start my story from from childhood. So I'm gonna go into like childhood, into adolescence, and then adulthood. So as I look at my childhood, and a lot of times people can say it was an amazing childhood. It was beautiful. It was all of that stuff, right? But there was a lot of fear. It was always either trying to fall asleep with hearing screaming voices, or it was waking up to screaming voices of my mom. I watched my mom be obedient, and be controlled by people most of her life. So I became that also. I was the one who slept closest to the wall so I could hear if my mom was alive. So that kind of really put me in a place of like, how do I cope with that every day from the time I can ever remember. Um, I grew up in a place and time where I looked in doing laundry and I scoop in. I'm actually there to scoop a load of laundry detergent, and it's wet substances and packages that it's not laundry detergent. Going into the next box, there's boxes of money. Um, there was a trash bag next to a tree in my yard. Do not touch that trash bag. There was so much secrets and silence in my house. You do not speak unless you are spoken to. And a lot of times in that growing up in those kind of things, I felt like it wasn't only my household, it was a household up the street. It was my best friend, it was their parents, and it was the years in the 80s where in the early 80s where cocaine was like really huge in Hawaii, and it started to get huge. And I felt like a lot of people who I was around and grew up around really was indulging in that profit of not only selling but also partaking in that. And it was multiple different weekends that I watched my mom, dad, and people around me just party. And I felt like that was part of my lifestyle for many, many years. But through that lifestyle, you have people who you call uncles who would do things to you that you felt like it was normal. Like when they come over, you say hi, you give them a kiss, even if they stuck their tongue in your mouth, that was the norm. Oh, that was this uncle. He was loving on me. He was kissing my neck at a very young age. I sat on his lap when he bounced me up and down. And at that time, I didn't feel like that was what is today, right? And I feel like a lot of times, like it was a normal thing because not only one of them did it, a few of them did it, right? And I felt like it wasn't only to me. I felt like it was to other people also. And this was the time of my life where turning into out of childhood into adolescence that I already knew all of this behavior. I knew my mom self-medicated. I knew my mom went through a lot of things, and this is the tool that my mom used to cope. And I want that. After the first childhood rape, I needed something to cope. I needed to find something that my mom used to cope with her life. Um, so I just started partaking in what my mom used to cope. And I felt like this was a place and time where now all of these people around me that I was obedient to allow to kiss me and allow them to kiss sisters and people around me, um, to start being and feeling like these are people who I feel safe around because that was our my surroundings. And it just started to take things to the next level where I am going to take you to Oahu and we're going to the zoo that I never got to go to. Um, I'm going to take you here. I'm going to take you there. And this was the time before no TSA. We had two small local airline companies. Nobody checked Pampers. Nobody checked clothing. No, you was a child. You're walking with an adult. You're fine. Um, and these are the times, places, and times that I was like, why are you making me hold this? Why are you putting this in my pants? Why is this happening? Who are you taking me? Who's taking me to the zoo when we get there? It's not you. So all of these things that I didn't even know until I think I got into this field that I was being trafficked. Um, and I think when me and Dana connected and I started sharing with her more of my story, and when I got to meet Diane, I was like, wait, I speak a lot about mental health and I speak a lot about incarceration and sexual assault, but I never spoke about trafficking. And I felt like a lot of times that is it sex trafficking? Is it this? Am I being touched by this person who's taking me to the zoo that there was things on my clothes, like and in myself, like I'm wondering if all of this is it human trafficking, is it sex trafficking? And it was a combination of a lot of all of that. So in my later youth years, it was the kind of was the norm. This is how I'm gonna put money in my pocket. I'm already going through a lot of addiction. I'm going a lot to finding my way. I'm running away. I'm hiding from my family. I am with the people who my family introduced me to, that introduced me to other people. So, in my young teen years, I was being put in cars to put in another car to put in another car. I was with people I know, then people I don't know, and people I never seen, all in the same day. I was going on flights with a specific person, being picked up with a different person, and meeting up with another person that I never knew. And there was places and times where this is what you do and this is how you do it. And I think one of my trips, I did not put it inside of me. I didn't put the drugs inside of me because it was just too sore. I was getting to a place in time where I had chemical burns throughout my thighs. And I just felt like this is not what I want to do. I don't care. They're not going to know. So on this one specific trip, they ripped my pants off and found out it wasn't in my cavity. And they beat me up really, really bad till I was in the hospital. And after that, I felt like this is done. I'm done with this. And I felt like I was, but didn't feel like I was safe. So I flew from state to state to kind of get myself together and try and fix things, and get my head together. But I felt like when I started this adulthood, um, there were so much things against me. I was already picking up a lot of different charges. My addiction started to be very bad, and at the time of trafficking, I felt like um I wasn't traffic material anymore. I wasn't as pretty. I was doing things to my body to not make me pretty, so I wasn't trafficable, right? At that time, I felt like they wanted this young, beautiful Hawaiian girl with long, beautiful hair, and all of that. And I started to cut my hair. I started to tattoo myself because they didn't really make me sellable, right? So in my adulthood, I felt like this is how I'm transforming into a different person because I don't want to be sellable. But after I did what I did and I got clean and sober and I tried to do what I had to do, of course, the stigma of like, this is your charges, this is who you are, your community already sees you like this, your family already sees you like this. And I had some charges and I could not get a job. I could not keep myself together because of all the trauma that I went through. Um, and as I stayed clean and sober, I ended up relapsing in Las Vegas, Nevada. And that's where I met my 18-year-old son's dad. And he promised to protect me all of this. Yes, I knew that he was trafficking, but he wasn't trafficking me, and he was trafficking drugs, and he was giving me money and doing all of these things, right, to keep me safe, to keep me whatever, whatever, until I wasn't safe, until I got right back into, um, I don't have to hide myself. I have to do a lot of things. I have to struggle. And after that, I'm like, I'm totally aware of what you're doing to me. And I just really got to a point where now I'm pregnant again. This is my fourth son. And I was done. I already lost my other three children, and I had this last baby in my stomach, and I said, Enough is enough. I'm done with people trafficking me. I'm done with waking up to people touching me that I do not know who they are. Like, this life is over. I am all the way done. I have this new life in my tummy that it's time to change. And I've already ruined three other children. So um, thank God that I gave birth to a healthy baby boy. I was clean and sober 1 week before I gave birth, and that he was my healing journey. He was part of my story to really get my life together. So I use him in my story a lot because we grew up together, we healed together, and we came to safety together in our lives. So, I really thank you guys for allowing me to share this publicly, because I've spoken about incarceration. I've spoken about a lot of things publicly, but never my trafficking story. And of course, there's many depth to all of that stories, but I feel like this was a point in time in my life to share with the world how important it is to validate survivor voices. I felt many times that I've told psychiatrists, psychologists, people on how the surface part of what really went on, but not the deep core part that I still continue to carry with me every day. So thank you guys for hearing, allowing me to share my story with you guys, and hopefully, in this lifetime of healing, I'm able to change and shape other people's lives, and to allow women to and our little girls out there, and this little girl over here, to share her voice, so little girls out there can get early intervention or not feel like they have to be obedient or touched by people who say that they love you and they're there to protect you. Thank you guys.
Sorry.
So I wanna end my talk story on just this saying right here, this silhouette. I feel like this is me, and I'm not my pain anymore. And I use my pain into passion. Um, so please stay connected with me, everyone, from here to everywhere. On this QR code is my nonprofit agency, and we work with the National Center of Victims of Crime, and we have groups, and we work with a lot of survivors that I get to. And I don't think any of the survivors I worked with ever heard this story, but maybe now that they will. But it's very successful, and I really, really love working with other women, and I really love validating their voices. So please stay in contact with me. Um, I hope this is a beginning of a lot more beautiful things in this world.
Thank you, Renee. When I catch our breaths, I know there's a lot to take in, but this too is also an image that Renee created. And this speaks a lot of volumes because I'm not my pain, understanding like I'm not what happened to me. I'm a survivor and I'm so much more. Final slide is our references, which you're going to be able to, you'll be able to have. I'm going to stop sharing now. Open it up for any Q&A or comments, anyone that may want to say something before we wrap up.
I'd like to say thank you to Renee and Dana and to all of you for being here. And if you have a chance, Renee, please look at the chat. There's a lot of heart sharing there. And Yeah, it's touching my heart. As Dana said, does anybody have any questions?
I'm going through the chat right now too. Uh,
And I'm an open book. You guys can ask me anything. I'm okay with anything. I'm sorry we started off a little late and, kept it a little short and not too much in detail, but I wanted to really highlight how important it is um, for a lot of us who the understanding of what trafficking is very important. And it's also very different for every single person.
Hi, Renee. My name's Hilda. I'm wondering, as you went through your recovery, were you able to stay with your support team, therapist, all those involved for time? Because I know sometimes when there's changes, it's kind of hard to develop that trust again to be able to share. And it seems
Yeah.
like you went through it for some years.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times trust is broken into you seeing this therapist and you're no longer seeing that therapist. And then you're going, I feel like a lot of times till this day, I can trust very few people. And I think because of a lot of the trauma, it's like believing that this person really said that they care about me. A lot of times it's action. And a lot of times, even still to today, honestly, I'm just gonna share like last night, I totally cried on this. We and Dana were like going over the PowerPoint, and this morning, as I walked into my office, the pain and the distrust and the paranoia like started kicking in. And I had to call Dana and I had to cry. And it felt like it's okay. Um, but the journey was like many waves that come and it just crashes and then it settles down and then it comes again. So I feel like this was a thing on for me, like a lot of people would think that I'm a very trusting person for people to share with me, but I'm not a trusting person for me to share with them. And so I feel like this was a start of being open and being trustworthy with the world. So and I feel like a lot of times when we work with people, I've had many, many, many different therapists. A lot. I had one. This is the first time in the past 6 years that I had one psychologist. And I met her through one of my guest speaking, and that was like my first time ever speaking publicly about my addiction and incarceration. Um, so it's still very hard for me to trust even myself sometimes, and trust my work and trust my slides and everything. Trust is a really big thing for survivors, um, and I think Dana and Juan, the CEO for my nonprofit, and even I'm in a 25-year relationship. I still have a hard time trusting that person. Did I answer that question? Sorry if you wanna.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate your openness. Thank you.
Renee, somebody asked if you can use volunteers in your organization.
Always, always. We have a waiting list. I mean, minimal funding, but for me, my college paychecks funds a lot of like for me. I just love to give. I love to hear. I love to support. And, I feel like a lot of times when people hear me say stuff, they're like, me too. Now I'm open. And I know a lot of times the trust is a huge barrier. It was a huge barrier for me, even to be in the role that I am today. Sometimes when I walk in my office, I'm like, I'm waiting for someone to open my door and say, "You've been punked. Get out of here. This ain't your office." Right? And I feel like a lot of times, even when I do guest speaking, I'm like, did I do good? Yeah. So it's like a lot of times if I can get the world to help, we need the help in all different realms. We really do. And even if it's small things, like I always tell people and volunteers, even if it's a little thing on like helping me share this or to just like help me go take a walk on the beach with some of these women. That's like a huge help. So yeah, email us and like jump on our website and check it out.
Are there any other questions or final words from Dana or Renee?
Just want to thank everybody for taking your lunch hour to spend with us and share in Renee's healing journey, because this is pretty historical, and I'm grateful to also walk alongside her in this work.
I'd like to also share that I'm grateful and deeply humbled to have both Renee and Dana here sharing with us today. And as it turned out, also thank you for kicking off our Lunch and Learn speaker series this year. Just so blessed and honored to have you here sharing with everyone. And Renee, amazing. Thank you. Thank you to everyone, as Dana said, for sharing your lunchtime with us. It's very much appreciated. And we hope to see you back at another one of our Lunch and Learn speaker series. And if nobody has anything else, we can close out. But thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. And a round of applause.